My name is David Ritsema. I'm the pastor at First Baptist Waxahachie, and I'm joined today by Justin Bass. And I'm going to let you, Justin, kind of take a second, maybe introduce who you are.
I'm from Texas and went to SMU. Actually, that's where I came to Christ, despite SMU, not because of SMU. And I was getting my business degree, planning to go to law school, everything. Really consumed with wanting to just be successful, make a lot of money. And my wife and I, she was my girlfriend at the time, we were waiting in line for a sorority fraternity party on Halloween night. It was actually 2001 Halloween night. And I was dressed up like Satan and my wife was dressed up like a devil girl. Just God's sense of humor here, because a guy was sharing the gospel with the girl in front of us as we waited in line. And we never talked to him. He never talked to us. He probably knew we were kind of, overhearing it. But the girl ultimately rejected him, the one he was talking to the whole time, and she went in the club. And that really was kind of the first time I'd ever seen straight evangelism, someone gentle way, challenge someone with the gospel. And I look back at that moment as that's when Christ said, "Follow me." And so soon after that, couldn't do nothing but study the Bible, wasn't interested in the business degree anymore. Thank God I finished with it, though. I got that business degree, but I got a minor in religious studies.
Wow.
And that's where I really got into apologetics, because the professor there, who's actually the chair of the biblical studies department there now at SMU, he's actually a disciple of Bart Ehrman too. I didn't even know that at the time.
Wow.
But he was always every class just bashing the Bible, the Sunday school version of Christianity, as he would put it, just basically just trying to dismiss any belief that the Bible's the Word of God or divine or inerrant, or any belief that Jesus claimed to be God or rose from the dead actually in history. These things are just, things only believed in the church, but we scholars, we believe something else. So this got me actually for the first time finding people like N.T. Wright, Luke Timothy Johnson, a Roman Catholic scholar, and people like that. And so I was finding the best arguments against the very strong arguments he was bringing, the Ehrman type arguments he was bringing. And that got me into apologetics, and I wanted to go to a seminary. I got connected with Dallas Theological Seminary. So I went there for the next 8 years, did master's and PhD straight through. I was a pastor for 6 years after that, and also an adjunct at DTS. I taught Greek there for 5 summers. And then I felt the Lord call us, my family, my wife and I both specifically felt the Lord call us to the Middle East to serve there. And so we've been there the last 3 years, serving in Amman, Jordan. I've been a professor at Jordan Evangelical Theological Seminary, and I pretty much wrote my book while I was there, and serving refugees as well, people from Iraq, from Yemen, from Syria. So I've seen many people come to Christ, baptized them in the Jordan River, the very place Jesus was baptized. Really cool. And so we came here back to Texas specifically because of my book, to promote my book, and then COVID happened. And so we've been here ever since. So it's just been a wild ride, but the Lord's been with us all the way through.
Well, and I want to just take a second and for people to see it if they haven't already. This is Justin's new book, The Bedrock of Christianity: The Unalterable Facts of Jesus' Death and Resurrection. I actually just got this book yesterday, and I sat down last night and I read through as much of it as I could. And as I was reading it, what struck me right away was that this is a book that absolutely any layperson who's interested in understanding what we really know about early Christianity and what we really understand about the absolute bedrock historical truth and facts, you unpack that, and you don't just put it there and without substantiation. There's footnotes for anybody that really wants to dig in and really do some thoughtfulness. And you're not somebody who's just writing this from the standpoint of just your own opinion. I mean, you're writing this from a standpoint that's inside of a stream of thought that is basically shared by scholars around the world. So I'm just curious, I guess maybe my question to you would be, what inspired you to write it? Kind of that process that you went through doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the introduction to that and how you see it, because that covers exactly what I was going for. In fact, Mere Christianity, I talk about that. You saw that I talk about, of course, C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity, one of the first Christian books I read after I became a Christian. And I wanted to do a thing like that, and I call it mere historical Christianity. So instead of, C.S. Lewis was going after what are all the doctrines of the Christian faith that are agreed on, by everyone at all times, at all places, whether you're Catholic, whether you're Orthodox, whether you're Protestant, Anglican, whatever denomination, everyone agrees on these certain doctrines. He does, I think, an excellent job showing that in Mere Christianity. I wanted to do that with the facts, the historical facts surrounding Jesus, his death, his resurrection, the early Christian movement, the rise of the early Christian movement, his earliest followers, especially people like Peter and James, Paul. So this would, I'd say, probably the primary reason I wrote it was just through my years at seminary and through the PhD, going deep into the historical critical scholarship over the last 250 years or so of people doing everything they can, in a lot of situations, really just to discredit aspects of historicity and things of the Bible and who wrote certain books of the Bible. But what I was still fascinated with was, even though the Bible went through those fires of the Enlightenment, the fires of historical critical scholarship, what came out perfect and in gold was these bedrock facts that were agreed upon by everyone. I say 99%, but 99% across the board, across the world, across the Western world, even by, I talk about even by Muslim scholars who, the few Muslim scholars who actually delve into biblical scholarship and write books about Jesus. Someone like Reza Aslan, for example, he wrote a terrible book about Jesus, but he still admits that Jesus was crucified. And the Quran, as you know, the Quran denies Jesus was crucified, and Reza Aslan still claims to be a Muslim.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's such a bedrock fact, they'll go against their own faith to affirm it. They're just immovable. And so I wanted to put all those bedrock facts in one place, because there's been such excellent books, obviously, written on the resurrection, but most of them are just really, tomes, we're talking 500, 600, 700 pages, and dealing with a lot of the debates surrounding, especially issues in the Gospels. And so I wanted to just kind of whittle it down to just the issues and the sources and the historical facts that are just agreed upon by everyone. So a great common ground, I think, starting place that a Christian can then go with to discuss Jesus and discuss the resurrection of Jesus with any unbeliever and any person of any other faith, including Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and any faith or non-faith.
One of the things that you mentioned, it just kind of strikes me as significant, both from your book and also from your interview with Bart Ehrman, is just the fact that there are still so many people kind of in the mainstream of culture who we still hear say, will make this statement, even though they have no idea that it isn't accurate, that Jesus is just a fiction of someone's imagination. He's a fairy tale. There's, or somebody even with degrees might even make the claim that Jesus wasn't really a historical figure. And yet, Bart Ehrman, who's probably the world's leading agnostic in the academic setting, certainly in the biblical scholarly setting, he's come out and said, this is simply not the case. I mean, that Jesus really did live. There's, and so
he wrote a book on it.
He wrote a whole book on it.
He wrote a whole book on it, and he called them foolish to their faces. There's a great video online you can see where he receives this award from this group of atheists, and pretty much all of them are what they call mythicists, people who deny the existence of Jesus. Obviously, not one of them has a degree in history or biblical studies or anything like that. And he just basically calls them all fools to their faces. It's a wonderful video.
There's a bit of irony, isn't there? Here is a man who is very honest. He doesn't have faith, but he, at least in a traditional evangelical sense of faith, but he's willing to courageously look at the facts, and when he does, he comes away with the conclusion that Jesus really is a historical reality.
And yeah, I mean, I would say he basically accepts the bare minimum you can accept on the liberal scholarship side of this debate. So he very rarely will side with the conservative on this or that issue when it comes to authorship of certain books of the New Testament or historicity of sayings of Jesus or especially anything supernatural he denies. But he does definitely agree on the bare essential facts of Jesus' life, that he was raised in Nazareth, that he was Jewish, that he was a carpenter, that he had brothers, he was baptized by John the Baptist. He preached the kingdom of God was at hand. He was this apocalyptic preacher, and that he had 12 disciples, that one of his disciples betrayed him, that he had the Last Supper, that he was crucified, and he even agreed with the empty tomb for a while. He's denied that. I think he realized he shouldn't give us too much there.
Open Pandora's box by admitting.
He realized, I'm going to change my mind on the empty tomb. He never gave a reason why, really, that he changed his mind, but he suddenly just started saying that no, I don't believe in the empty tomb. But then he does believe, though, as I show in the book, the bedrock fact of the appearances, that Peter, Mary Magdalene, James, the brother of Jesus, Paul, all these people at least believed that they saw the risen Jesus, and really even some of them went to their deaths believing that, and Ehrman affirms that too, at least with Peter and Paul. He agrees they died for their faith. And he even wrote a book, the book he wrote right before this last one that just came out. He just came out with a book actually on heaven and hell. I haven't read that one yet, but I'm interested in that because that will delve into issues that I dealt with in that first book. But the book before that, he wrote The Triumph of Christianity. And even in that book, he's laying out a lot of the solid facts about how the Christian movement just, started out with, he estimates about 20 people. The book of Acts says 120, but, he says about 20 people, which makes it even more incredible that they went on to take over Western civilization and become the largest movement, religion in the world. And so even that book, he tries to get around the supernatural side. He tries to explain how Christianity arose without a supernatural aid to it. But I think it goes back to the Gamaliel wisdom that everyone who fought against the Christian movement find themselves fighting against God. And we see that again and again throughout history.